I spent 12 years at the Canadian Scottish Regiment. I have my Canadian decoration, which is the one on the left for 12 years service. I spent 6 months in Cyprus in 1988 as a UN peacekeeper. I'm on my 26th year of being a member of this pipe band society. Pretty much I was recruited right away to be the drum major. So yeah, I've been at it for a while. The drum major is the conductor of the band. Music has already been in place already, and that's usually organized by the pipes major himself and the pipe sergeant and the drum sergeant. Drum major is a guy that leads in parades and ceremonial events, leads the band. There's situations where verbal commands can't be used, so that's why the drum major uses his mace for wheels and cutting off and counter marches and such. And the mace is a tool in conveying direction for the organization and helps them keep in line.
Your first command has got to be strong so that people know that you are in charge and you are giving them some direction. Attention! And you don't want to catch them off guard. So the first command, band, is simply that, is to get their attention. Then they're expecting something. They know usually what it's going to be. And yes, I am checking out the pipe major to see what timing he wants to start this piece at, and I'm counting the time with him. And he's giving me the indication about how fast he wants to play it, and I will call it out, as in drums by the right, quick march, boom, boom, boom. So that is how I set the time.
Green Hill, battle's over! By the right, quick march!
I've been a drum major for two different major bands, one being the Delta Police in Vancouver and the other one being the E Division, which is Vancouver RCMP pipe band, which I created and was the drum major for 16 plus years. The drum majors and drummers were introduced in the British system to pipe bands through the military in about the mid to early 1800s. They came about basically because the regiment had pipers, but they would be a regimental piper and they would play individually or they might play in a group of 3 or 4, but they never had a band at that point. There weren't bands per se. So to keep them going in a theme of a band, they drew from the regiment. And most of the regiments had military brass bands, and so they drew from those people to become the drummers and drum major for the pipers. And pipers and pipe bands were created, basically. That's one of the reasons why a lot of pipe bands that wear traditional uniforms, the drummers wear red, and the pipers wear full Highland gear, because the drummers were originally assigned to the regiment.
Pipes and drums by the center! Quick march!
Drum majors, when they came on board, they had to have a job. So for the regiment, they were required to do a lot of the administrative duties. Plus, they were also a key member in dealing with dress and deportment. Drum major, as it is not a rank. It is a designation. So in other words, someone from the military could be a corporal, a sergeant, staff sergeant, and they could then become a drum major. They don't become a different rank. They are still that same corporal, sergeant, staff sergeant, but they have the designation, and the designation is for life. In the British Army, they came up with the name drum major. And it became quite the way to go. So other countries in the world began to try to emulate what they were doing. And one of the things that France did, for instance, France created their same person, but they called him a colonel of drums because a colonel is higher than a major. Well, the British wouldn't put up with that. So the British came back and said, no, ours is a drum major general. So there was a bit of a contest going on as to who was going to get the most senior of the group. But that's where the term came from. And it all evolved back down to drum major. And drum majors and drums major are very common in the Commonwealth area. We all fall under that same kind of umbrella. The drum major is a figurehead, not only of the band, but generally speaking of the regiment, remembering that most drum majors came from the military side of the house. And they were expected to be best dressed, the best deportment, the best of all the visuals that you get from the regiment. So they were tasked with that. And the other thing that they did was they carried what is known as a baldric. And the baldric has the battle honors of the regiment. This happens to be the baldric of the RCMP, and we were involved in 5 different battles, and we are recognized for them. The other thing that some regiments do is on the head of the mace, they will also put the battle honors. But it's become financially prohibitive to do that now. So you find that it's mainly done by regiments with any kind of money background. The purpose of the mace for the drum major is to give direction to the band and allow them to move in a uniform manner. So there's some basic flourishes that are come about. And one would be to, if I want to take the band in this direction here, I would bring the mace up to this level, extend it that way. Now, it seems different than what it should be because I'm not pointing where we're going. But what I'm trying to do is to keep everybody in a straight line. So the outside person is focusing on his distance to my mace. And therefore, if I was going the other way, of course it would be this way, and we drag them around. So essentially you're dragging the band around to allow it to come. Then to stop the band from marching, we bring it up to above the head. And then it's at the end of a certain part, usually on direction and cooperation between the drum major and the pipe major, we will indicate what time we want to stop the band from marching. We're marking time at this point. And at the end of the part, we would bring the mace down and bring it back into its position and back into where it belongs. Then to stop the band from playing, the physical act of playing, it would go from here to here to here. And if a drum major is on the ball, and should be, he is giving the timing for the double beats by doing a jerk of the drum. And they would know then that that is the end of the part. At the end of the part, brings back to the normal, drops it down, back into the position. All maces are very similar. They start with a finial, which is the top portion up here. This can be changed to change the balance, change the weight. It can be, it has a lot to do with being able to swing the mace. For regimental ones, you will see will be quite large and quite showy. It also holds the whole piece together. It holds the head. Now, in regiments, in military regiments, the mace is quite often consecrated by the chaplain. In other words, he gives it a blessing. And in some regiments, and the RCMP is one of them, we receive a roll of honor. And it is the people who have died on duty in the RCMP, right from day one. That scroll is inside this head, and it's maintained. That's the reverence of keeping this piece. Then we have the shaft, and the shaft originally was made out of Malacca cane. It was flexible enough, it was durable enough, and it became the standard. On the bottom, there's a finial, which just, again, keeps it all together, and it allows so you don't damage the cane. Now that the bands are doing more and more flourishing and throwing of the mace, these maces have become simpler. You will see a finial that is very, very simple. The head that is very simple and has nothing that will catch on the uniform. The canes are actually made out of fiberglass, polycarbonates, any kind of new materials. They're changing all the time. It's like any other sport or instrument. It's evolving for the people that are using it today. That's the fashion of the mace. In the Edinburgh Tattoo in the 1950s, drum majors were starting to flourish the mace. Flourish the mace means to move it around and to put it over their heads and spin it around and throw it in the air. Those are all types of flourish. There's also simple flourishes like marching with a step, and there's ways to do that. But in the 1950s, at the Edinburgh Tattoo, one of the drum majors flourished in that he threw the mace. He missed when it came down, and on the esplanade of Edinburgh Castle was his drum major's mace in many, many pieces all over the ground, which happened to be caught by some of the major media of the day. It became a front page story in most of Europe's major newspapers. From that point on, nobody at the Edinburgh Tattoo throws a mace when they're in a performance. So that's the reasoning why the whole flourishing is a debate now. Now, in the 1940s, what they call civilian bands or territorial bands, which we in Canada see as reserve units, they started to include drum majors. Those drum majors were not held to the regulations that were designated by the military. And so therefore, flourishing became much more prevalent and has evolved into a contest in itself. It's a lot of the civilian bands, they compete worldwide in a drum majors competition where a band will play as the guest band, and the drum majors will basically march up and show their flourishes. At the end of the day, somebody wins and somebody loses. So that's how the whole idea of flourishing came about. And the military is still very pomp and ceremony. The civilian side is very much flamboyant and much more flashy.
What we get is just a lot of thank yous and a lot of appreciation and just making people very happy and you know, bringing back some of our heritage, and a lot of this is lost in the younger people, and a lot of the older generations really respect it and they love it.
The drum major is supposed to be the most dignified person on the parade, and he or she is to personify what is the best of the best in as far as dress and deportment and things along that lines. So they go to great lengths to try to hold that status.
I'm very proud to be a part of the Kelowna Pipe Band Society, and very proud to be part of the nucleus that is of the pipe bands that are here in the Okanagan. I've made many friends and I've created many memories, and I'm just proud to be a part of it.
I've done many tattoos around Halifax Tattoo I've done 3 times. Edinburgh I played at once, and we were a guest band for a second time. The those have been truly the highlights of my playing career.
Playing drum major for a mass band of over 120 pipers and drummers, playing Scotland the Brave here in Kelowna about 8 years ago, celebrating the 100th anniversary of Kelowna, I believe it was. Yeah, leading that huge band down the road is just absolutely incredible. And I had an opportunity in Nelson just this last year to do the same thing for their 100th anniversary, and it's just absolutely incredible.
There's such a strong culture here with the past families that have created pipe bands. Even as a small child, I came up here to compete as a drummer with the band I played with as a child, and all through my career, we kept coming back to Penticton. So to be part of that and to be able to lead the mass bands out onto the field was a very big highlight for me. It's an incredible community for Celtic involvement. We were totally part of the reason why we've eventually moved here.
This is an incredible highlight in my whole career. I left the military, being a soldier in the Canadian Scottish Regiment, following the pipe band. And here I am now in my retirement leading the pipe bands and leading parades. It's a huge accomplishment for me. Very proud to be in this situation. Very proud to be a member of such a group of people that are really tight-knit. There's a family of pipers and drummers throughout the world. No matter where you go, you feel welcomed.
The most impressive day I ever had was on two separate occasions in the Edinburgh Tattoo, marching out through the front gates, and there's 5 drum majors walking across the bridge, and we're the first ones walking onto the Esplanade, and it's probably the most, if my chest swelled anymore, there'd be no buttons left. They were so impressive and a highlight of my life, my career.